Today is Thursday, September 12th, 2024. Debbie, please call roll.
Karen Reedstein. Here. Kenny Bowman. Here. Todd Hudson.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. If everyone could please stand for the pledge, but after the pledge, we are going to stay standing and have a moment of silence in remembrance of 9/11. So thank you. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will move on to approving tonight's agenda. Not any changes to the agenda.
No, ma'am.
We don't have an executive session, so we can cross that off. Council, any changes to the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the agenda as written, striking item 11, executive session.
Second. I have a motion by Todd, second by Kendra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 3-0. Moving on to the next item, which is Kechi civic groups and committees. Or I'm sorry, a consent agenda. Consent agenda. Council, any questions about tonight's consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Karen, second by Todd. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 3-0. Move down to our communications section. Kechi civic groups or committees. Do we have any civic groups and committees who would like to speak tonight? Seeing none, I will highlight that the Kechi Fair is on September 28th from 2 to 9 p.m. We'll have a band, we'll have different games and activities that you can come to. We'll have a vendor fair and touch a truck, lots and lots of fun things to do, and we'll also have an ice cream social. So also, if you're a baker, please come out and submit your baking to our baking contest, which will also then lead into our cakewalk. So, all right. We will move on to Kechi Good News. Does council have any Kechi Good News? Okay, I'll move on. So this month is Suicide Prevention Month. So if you or someone you know struggles with suicide, please reach out to 988 or your local mental health facilities like ComCare or Suicide ICT. They both have great resources to help you identify the signs and symptoms of suicide and how you can help. Every person matters. I will also want to give a big shout out to Jan Butterfield. She's been posting every day on one of the Kechi community pages, spreading the positivity and all of her positive messages, saying good morning to Kechi every morning. And I did personally message her and say that I appreciated it, and then I got to meet her in person at Movies in the Park, so that was great. So thank you, Jan, for all that you do on spreading joy. I also want to give Public Works a huge shout out. They've been hard at work at the park. They were hard at work the weekend that the utilities decided to just die on us. So thank you all for all your hard work. You and your guys did amazing work, and we appreciate how quickly you got everything back on. We know that that was a really tough day for you guys, so we do appreciate you and we do see you. So thank you very much. Any other Kechi? Debbie has Kechi Good News.
We had a couple residents that supplied lunch for all staff after the water leak as a thank you, and that was very much appreciated. And we were one of the first to turn in a completed LCR.
Yay! Congratulations! you guys do amazing work, and thank you so much. I told Thomas last time, but thank you so much, Debbie, for how much work you put in. I know you and Thomas spent hours sitting back there plugging stuff in, so really great job. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And she should clarify, first means first in the state,
Yeah, that's
not just around here.
that's amazing. So thank you guys for all your hard work on that. Any other Kechi good news? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. Debbie.
Joni?
All right, Jody.
Are you ready? Oh, it's for you.
Sorry.
No worries. Alright, go ahead. Joni Harris, 109 West Chippewa Street, Madam Mayor, members of council. You have on your agenda tonight to discuss about the park board, and they're specifically about the number of members. It's been brought forward before by City Administrator Matt Jensby, that it's been very difficult to recruit members to be part of the fair committee. That is an event that takes place just twice a year, whereas the park, we utilize that every single day. So I would really encourage you, do not reduce the number of members that are on the park board. When you go into discussion, there's a lot of people here that care about our park and want to be part of it. I've talked to numbers of people throughout Kechi that said they would love to be on the park board. I would hope that we would have from senior citizens to single young people to families represented, so that as we go forward with the park board, that we would really get a great representation of our community as we look to reestablish the park board, as you all reestablish the park board, and then decisions that need to be made, because there's obviously, we know that there's been many decisions that are waiting for the park board to be able to move forward. I would hope that if you ever considered reducing the number of people, it's because as you actually went forward through seeking people to apply to be part of the park board, that you just didn't get the response for it. But I would ask that you would delay making a decision to reduce the number of people that are members of the park board until actually it becomes active and we begin to seek the public applying to be part of the park board. I know that, just as an example, during the interviews and applications, 3 out of the 4 candidates for the appointed seat that was available in January, 3 of us said we would all be willing to be on the park board. So just something for you to consider as you have this discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next.
Doug Bonison?
Doug.
Hi, Doug Bonison, 521 North Prairie Creek Drive. Just wanted to, a couple good things. I just want to say thank you to Thomas and all his crew for being able to flush my toilet. Thank you. And electricity, appreciate that. So thank you. I know you guys just, thank you. 2, the park looks great. Appreciate, I don't know who the dude is with the cowboy hat. I don't know. What? Aaron. Does a great job, looks great. You guys trimmed today, looks really good around the pond. And it's just like, I just see more and more people using the park, and it's just really nice. So thank you for keeping it looking nice, up to date, just looks good, appreciate that. 3, with I think what you said about Suicide Prevention Month, I think there's something I would like to just do. I would like to pray for the police department. Just to be able to, because they're the ones kind of sometimes first on hand. They can be make or break for people, and I've dealt with it myself with patients, so I get it. So if you wouldn't mind, could I just pray for the police department? So Father, we just come to you in Jesus' name, and Father, I just pray for Tom, or for the Chief Moore and the police department, and I ask for you to give them favor, empathy, insight, and protection when they're dealing with any domestic disturbances, any crime, and I ask for you to give them wisdom and to be able to de-escalate anything and to catch it before it gets big. And I just pray for protection over their families, and just keep your hand on them. I just thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. All right, we will go ahead and close public forum. Move on to old business, and NRPs, Neighborhood Revitalization Plan discussion. Matt.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Back in April, we spoke about developing a NRP, and since that time, Andrew has developed a draft copy of the NRP for us, and to move forward, we need input from the council. Several items specifically are eligible areas that we want to focus on in town. Qualifications for projects, do we want rehabilitation for new construction? Do we want to focus on residential, commercial? Maximum number of years for the NRP, maximum amount of property tax rebate that would be provided, and qualifications for receiving tax rebates. And I'm going to ask Andrew to kind of help answer some of the questions that council may have on this. But it's just for discussion to help us, guide us to draft a policy to bring to you in the next month or so. Andrew, do you have any?
I don't really have anything to add to that, except to start the discussion, we can kind of, I think, maybe focus it on the draft we put together just as a starting place has 3 general focus areas. It kind of makes some distinctions between residential development versus commercial and industrial type development. Pull up the most recent one you have in your packet here. So as a starting place, what we have put in the plan is, as we kind of talked about before, the purpose of the neighborhood revitalization program is to incentivize development and the expenditure of funds to create new projects within the city. And so in order to do that, it qualifies certain projects that, to the extent investment is made in improving a piece of property, if the value of that property goes up as a result of that project and the assessed valuation by the county goes up, the city has the ability through the NRP to reimburse or refund that increment that was created by the new project to the taxpayer. It's not an upfront abatement. The owner has to pay whatever the new taxes are, but the city has the ability to then rebate that increment portion back to them based on the new improvements. And so, as a place to start from, we created a program that for new residential construction, so an entirely new house, the city would potentially grant 50% tax rebate for up to 5 years on a new build house. On residential rehabilitation, so if you had a significantly debilitated home that needed to be brought back up to standards and brought up to modern standards, then 100% of the increase in the value from that house would be subject to rebate if that project were undertaken. And then for commercial and industrial buildings, whether it's rehabilitation or new build, there's a schedule that is basically 100% the first year, and then 90, 80, 70 until you get 10 years to 10%. And so again, that's just a starting place for discussion. You can basically grant up to 10 years of 100% rebate for any of these projects. It just matters, what do you want to focus on, what do you want to incent, how far do you want to go. So that's kind of discussion one. Think about in connection with that also, you're not permitted to just designate the entire city as qualifying for the NRP. And so as you're thinking about what types of projects you want to incent and how much you want to incent them, that often goes hand in hand with what areas of town are we looking at that need the most redevelopment? So I'll stop there and let you guys ponder.
And the information in your draft copy is kind of middle of the road from what other cities in this area do. So the graduated scale for commercial and industrial, the 100% for 5 years for rehab, 50% for new construction it's very consistent with what neighboring cities or counties do in this area.
So on the rebate to do the refurbishment of a house, I know renting is kind of a big thing right now, so the property owner would get that rebate, not the renter. Is there anything we can put on that, so like, I don't know, I struggle with that one. The renters are getting 100% back their property taxes and, maybe not passing that off to the renter, and so they're still having it like at an extremely high rate to offset property taxes or whatever, so.
There's not a very good practical way of ensuring
Yeah.
that a landlord is gonna
Yeah.
pass that through to,
Totally
you
understand.
know, to tenants. I think you just have to hope that if you are giving that rebate, that it will, through competition, I suppose, allow them to perhaps pass some of that through to the tenants.
That's fine, I just wanna make sure we
Yeah.
talked about it, if it was something that,
Absolutely agree.
yeah, that's a concern that I have, so. Questions, council?
I guess I need to think about what the volume of properties that might be able to apply for this type of rebate. Do we have like an estimate of what we're thinking, the number of properties in the area might benefit from it?
Well, it would depend on what areas of town you specified. And we would be making some assumptions that maybe a majority or only a minor part of those properties may make improvements. I think that's a little hard to project. I don't know if you guys have ever done anything like that, but
Not an assessment of
it would
who's taking
solve-
advantage, yeah.
yeah, it would be solely based on the assumption of who may take advantage of it. I think it's good to have it there to incentivize people to improve their properties, which in turn, helps the city and improves the values of the properties around it.
Are the NRP designated areas, are they specific for, say, the arts and business district that we've kind of labeled and focused on recently the last few months? Would that be separate from an NRP for residential area, which would be in a different area, or is it all classified the same?
You can designate whichever areas you want under the plan. So, if you wanna identify, there's the arts and business district, which we want to be available to take advantage of this, and there's also, an area of town that residential wise could use some rehabilitation, so we'll include that area, and then maybe over here in the industrial park, where we wanna make it available for that kind of development, we'll have it there too. I mean, generally you have a map attached to your program that has, all the various little areas that you might have designated, and they can absolutely be the arts and business district and the industrial area and whatever other places you want.
I'm thinking a little more specific, and I didn't ask it right, but
Yeah.
say for the commercial, that we would designate, yes, we would do NRP for commercial build in this area, but not for a house.
Oh, yeah, you could certainly do
Something
that. I
like
mean,
that. Okay.
remember that those areas are usually restricted by zoning already, but to the extent they're
Sure.
not, you can, yes, you could build that in as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know we've been through enough things in Kechi that we know we've got a
Right.
very much of a mix between residential, commercial,
Yeah.
residential, commercial, so it's kind of tough to do that
Yeah,
sometimes.
yes, you could say in this area it's, available for commercial projects, and in this area residential, sure.
So once we designate areas, I feel like I remember us saying, once it's already identified and we put it out, that's all that can be in there, we can't revise it and add more places, we have to do a new one?
You can revise it and add more places, you just have to go through the process again. the
Okay.
full
Yeah.
process, so that's right.
So it's basically like replacing what we had done, we just have to do a new one.
Right, you have to do it again.
Okay. And we can do it like block by block, we don't have to, I didn't know if there's a specific amount of property we have to put in it.
Nope.
It's totally your discretion.
Just can't do the whole city.
Correct.
So if we leave one block off, we're
Right.
fine,
How-
right?
how-
I mean,
Take it out of
I'm
it.
just
Yeah.
kidding.
And Andrew, just for clarification purposes, specifically with the commercial and industrial, if they applied for an IRB, I would assume this would not apply. So they couldn't take advantage of both.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
one or the
I mean,
other.
the taxes can only go one place.
I think it's hard for me to see, so I don't know if council has ideas on where to put it, but if we had a map, I don't know if we can
Yeah,
do it
and I
tonight,
can-
it may be easier maybe next time
And
if
from
we
some of
pull
the
it up.
input that I've got, just talking to people,
Mhm.
that the area of focus would be the central part of town that we wanna see develop, the arts and business district.
Mhm.
And then maybe some pieces out on the east side of town for residential growth,
Mhm.
and in the industrial park over there as well.
I think before I commit to anything, I'd like to see it on a map.
Yeah, and we're not asking for
Okay,
commitment tonight,
that-
we're
and
just
that- and
asking
that's
for
fine.
direction. And I can develop a map if those are kind of what you're envisioning, we can develop a map with those areas and bring it back to you.
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, no decisions are being made
Yeah.
tonight, just discussion, yeah. How is everybody on, the, graduated scale for the commercial and industrial? The 10 years, starting with 100% and going down, to year 10 at 10%.
I'm on the fence, I kinda need to think about it a little bit more,
Okay,
but
Oh, that's residential, okay.
yeah, and then new construction would be 50% for 5 years, and rehabilitation of a property would be 100% for 5 years.
Is there a reason it's different from housing to commercial and industrial? So housing is 5 years and commercial and industrial is 10 years?
Yeah, maybe you
It's-
could answer that.
It's, first of all, it's all a policy decision for the council to decide. Usually those distinctions are made because, there's more of an economic development benefit to the city at large from the commercial and industrial development, than the residential development, but there's still some desire to, make sure that individual homeowners would have the ability to get some benefit of the program, and of course, there's a desire to increase the quality of homes in areas that might need it. So that's usually the distinction. There's no reason why, you couldn't make them more consistent with each other across types.
I think I just have one more question. How would how would this work financially for the city to manage that and budget for it?
I don't think it would be any burden to the city by any means.
So usually, remember that these are all projects that haven't happened yet. The theory is this would incent something to happen that might not happen if it didn't already. So, as of today, nothing that is gonna create taxes in the future is in any kind of a budget. So it's not like you're, necessarily forgiving someone's taxes that are currently on the tax rolls. The second piece of that is this plan gets administered somewhat through the county because the county collects taxes. And so once this is all established, you send it to the county and the county keeps track of who we've told them is qualifying and has made application, and they send the city the money back that's supposed to be rebated, and then all we have to do is pass it along to the right person.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing I'll remind council, as you think through this, is this plan just by itself is for the city's mill levy. We can absolutely go to the county and the school districts and ask them to participate. It will be totally up to them, but it's not unusual for all three of those largest taxing districts to participate as well, so that people can take advantage of that entire large chunk of the mill levies.
I think you mentioned last last time that typically they do participate some.
Most
at
of
least
the
some.
time, yeah.
Any other dying questions, Matt, that you need answered from us for direction tonight?
No, I don't. I think I can take what you gave us tonight and we'll come up with a second draft and bring it back to you possibly next meeting in the first of October. And we'll have a map actually.
Yeah.
What's that?
The map would be helpful.
Yeah, we will definitely have a map, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. Moving on to the park board discussion. Matt, you again.
Yeah, so I do have a question. We didn't realize we were gonna have so few members here tonight for this discussion. It's not a discussion we have to have tonight. We could push it off till next council meeting if that's the council's desire, so everybody can be involved in that conversation. And it's really up to you if we want to table this tonight and wait for the rest of the council members to be here if we want to discuss it, so totally up to you.
Delay it further?
I mean, it's still gonna be discussion, so no matter what, we're not making any decisions.
Right.
We would
Yeah.
definitely want to continue the discussion, but maybe I'd go ahead and start getting some ideas out tonight.
Sure, yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So currently, we do not have a park board. It was disbanded several years ago for various reasons, and I know it is the desire of the council to get that going again so we can start making some decisions about our parks and have some input in those. There's a couple things we can do. One of the struggles that we have had, not just for the park board, but is finding volunteers to serve on the boards that we currently have. A lot of the people who serve on the boards that we have serve on all the other boards that we have too. So there's not a lot of diversity when it comes to our boards. It's all the same people. A couple things we could do. We could maintain status quo with the current park board bylaws that we have. Included in your packet are copies of our ordinance with those bylaws, which is a board consisting of 7 members and 1 ex officio member who is a non-voting member, staggered terms on the board, and then defines the purpose of the park board. It shall be an advisory board and shall counsel the governing body on relative to the park and recreation activities. They're to hold a meeting once a month, and it is my understanding that's one of the reasons the park board had kind of disbanded, is there just weren't enough people to make the meetings for whatever reason. So I did a little bit of research what other cities do. Valley Center specifically a few years ago consolidated some of their boards into more of a community advisory type board. Park City has a pride board that kind of governs activities within the city and makes recommendations on park activities and festivals and different things like that. So I think the trend is kind of going towards consolidating some of the boards to encompass everything, so that for us that would look like the park board, the fair committee, and the arts council would all be consolidated. I have not personally talked to people on the fair committee. I know Mary, you're part of that. Kendra, you're part of that as well. So I have not talked to people on the arts council, but I think that's something that we should look at too. I put together, and I'll hand out a kind of concept of what that may look like for you just to kind of review. I think that, here, let me trade you, that's my picture on the paper, but I'll do this thing. No, Valley Centers is included in that too. Would anybody in the audience like a copy of that? So we'll just kind of go through it real quick. Composition of the board would be 7 to 9 members, very similar to what we have now. There would be a chairperson, a vice chair, a secretary, and then the city administrator or another designated city staff member to be on the board as well to kind of communicate between the city and the board. It would be comprised of subcommittees, specifically for event planning, like the city fair, somebody from Parks and Recreation, and the Arts and Culture is what we could call it, subcommittee. Other members who could be on it would be city council or planning commission members. Somebody that has experience in park and recreation, community events coordinator, somebody from the arts board, a youth representative. We don't have anybody of that status on any of our boards right now. That is kind of a trend, is to have a high school student or somebody like that from the community on it. A senior citizen from the community on the board to bring a different perspective, and a business representative. Now, we wouldn't have to have all of those are just options of people who could be on the board. Have some stuff listed under selection criteria, people who are interested in community development, who are kind of experts in certain areas that it applies specifically to parks. Term limits would be very similar to what we currently have, 2 to 3 year terms. And meetings, we could make those, I think, whatever we want. Monthly, bi-monthly, Andover and Goddard, not on their park boards, but they have went to an ad hoc type of board where people meet as needed. One of them, I believe, Andover meets once a quarter, and then everything else is on an as-needed basis when they have events going on, and they need to meet, more regularly, they can do that as well. So various options on how that board could be structured, and I think it would be very important that it be open to the public, to encourage and solicit people to volunteer for those different activities that are going on. So just some things to stimulate some thoughts on that. Also attached to that is Valley Center, what they call their Public Properties and Outdoor Spaces Board, which is a consolidation of several of their boards.
Have you talked to anyone at Valley Center about, since they've consolidated?
I have not, no. I will talk to the city manager at our next city manager meeting about it.
Yeah, I'd like to know
See how it works,
how
yeah.
what the meetings about it.
Mhm.
I know Clearwater did a similar thing, and their council president has told me it's worked wonders. They have had more engagement and had more consistency over their boards, compared to just volunteers. They switched about, I think, 4 years ago. So.
But being a 7-member board, since it's an advisory committee, if they don't have a quorum, can they still meet? And like the planning commission, we had.
Yeah, and Andrew, they're not making any legally binding decisions, so they can still meet.
So we
Yeah, I
could
mean,
leave it at a higher number, and
you
then
could-
if we just don't fill it, we're still okay?
I mean, you can talk about whether the recommendation coming from them is official or not. If they didn't have a
Mhm.
quorum, it's ultimately legally up to the council if they follow those or not. So it should be pretty flexible.
Yeah, we, as fair committee, we follow them now, but here's my struggle with our civic groups as it stands. 3 of us on the fair board either work in some sort of capacity for the city. Teresa is a staff member, Kendra and I are both on council, and my husband is vice chair, which I force him to get. So there's 4 of us who have something to do with council on we have 7 members who show up consistently, and 6 sometimes. So we can't get volunteers for the fair. We've solicited, we've asked continuously. We're not getting that unless we are directly directly asking every single person, even then, we're still not getting the responses. We can't hold big events that everybody in the community wants because nobody's showing up. I can only keep something together so long. Jared's here, Jared's our fair chair. He can only keep it together so long. Everybody quit the park board because we didn't have the membership, we didn't have the buy-in from everybody. We can't keep going the way we're going, or we're not gonna have any civic groups. So I like this plan. I think it's good, and because we're all sharing volunteers. Betty Washington's on the fair board, but she's also the president of the Arts Council. We're going to 4 meetings a month, trying to all do one event for the fair, when we could all be at one meeting and have it all sorted out by the time we're done. Then we don't have to go back and forth asking all the different members. This consolidates everybody's time and effort, so we're not spread so thin. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with some of that. Some of the comments that I heard from other people that I talked to in other cities was, you know, the thing they struggle with is how do we get people to see the relevance of participating on these boards? They are vitally important, especially when in smaller cities like this, when we want to have community events, it takes a lot of manpower to handle those events. In addition to our public works and police department, who are already working 5 days a week, that adds to their work schedule. We know that that's part of it. Utilizing city staff, I do not advocate for that. City staff will help during the week. They work 5 days a week, 10-hour days, and their weekends are important to them to be home with their family. If they choose to volunteer, absolutely, that's on them. But we need volunteers, and that's what we need to make community things happen. So, getting the buy-in from the community and helping them recognize how important it is to volunteer those 3, 4, 5 hours to those events that they can to help them be successful.
I think this also gives people a chance to attend one meeting and they can find out what each group needs.
Very
And
true.
maybe where they could volunteer a little bit of time, instead of like, oh, I have to figure out when the fair meeting is and then go meet with them and then,
Yes, very true.
Maybe we could get some input on how they, when they've consolidated these boards, of how they structure things and run the meeting. Is there an allocated time for parks? Is there an allocated time for, the other fair or whatever,
Yep.
other activities they're doing? Because I wouldn't want it to be, I suppose during the year, if the fair is coming up, it would be, okay, the agenda is very heavily weighted toward the fair, and then other times the park, but I would hate for something to get lost, or one of the areas to get lost.
So just skulking around on the internet, I found that Valley Center does record their meetings, so if you ever wanted to go see what the winter meetings, I think they publish the agendas as well. So I didn't stop to listen to an hour-long meeting, but
Yeah.
I did find it on there. I think it's a great idea because that back and forth would be eliminated. I think if the structure is well-designed and the leadership, make sure that nothing falls through the cracks, not one area gets more attention than the others and then the others fall away, I think it would work really well.
Go ahead. No, if you.
And the number of members could be a larger number, and we wouldn't have that, having issues with having too small of a board making decisions. Subcommittees could be created. I think it's a great idea.
Another thing, we compete for donors. So Arts Council may ask for donors for one thing, but then we're hitting them up right after for the fair. And so if we're asking all of our local business owners to donate something to us, shouldn't we ask one time instead of 8 throughout the year? It doesn't make sense to me. So I think we're burdening our businesses, I think we're burdening our residents, and I'm not okay with that.
Good point.
because most of those people are on the same committee. So then they forget, like, what are we, which agenda are we talking about, so I do think that would be really important, to keep track of, like, set a specific agenda and make sure that we're following it, and we don't lose track of something that might be not as important at that time, but you still need to discuss it. I agree.
Yeah, and just for clarification,
Mhm.
I was not including the chamber in this. The chamber is a completely
Mhm.
separate organization, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is fine. We know, we understand. Yeah.
So would you like staff to pursue this
Yes,
consolidated model and bring something back to you?
yes.
I would like to know what Valley Center says.
Yeah, absolutely, that would be part
How
of,
they're dealing with it.
yeah, that'll be part of what I do is
Okay.
talk to them and
When
see
did
how
you say,
they.
when did they implement this?
I don't know exactly what year.
Been a little.
Yeah, I think it's been a while.
Yeah, it's on the website, and it's been several years, so. they should-
2010 sticks out to me for some reason, but I don't know if that's,
I think it was 2014, 2015.
okay, all right.
Somewhere around there.
Also, I'm part of every single committee this city has, so I think that we should also talk to them, I have been traveling, but
Mhm.
talk to the Arts Council.
Yeah.
Like, I can go talk to them, and I can also talk to the chamber, what do you guys think? It's mostly the same people, but they still run their meetings how they wanna run them,
Sure.
We need to talk about them collaborating.
I did talk to Betty
Okay.
at the last meeting, and she was on board with, having conversations about how this would look, so,
Okay.
I think,
Yeah,
at
just
least from
including them.
leadership, from Arts Council would be,
Okay.
on board, but obviously the members may feel different.
So we currently have a park, we're looking at reestablishing parks, but we also have arts and
Fair, fair.
fair committee. So we have arts committee and we have a fair committee. So we should have three, if we had parks board. And are there any others?
There used to be a 55 and older club, but that also disbanded for lack of participation. So, and I feel like there was another one at one point, I think before we came on, but I cannot remember, and Teresa's not here to remind me what it was. So, so I know there had been 4+ at one point, so.
Just Doug and Kathy Bonison, I hate to put you on the spot, and you don't answer if you don't want to, but you guys were the only ones, I believe, that were on the old park board. What's your feeling on this?
Well.
Can we come up and talk?
Yeah.
Sure.
you can come up.
And if you wanna discuss next time, I
No.
apologize for putting you on the
No.
spot.
I appreciate your offer. I'm gonna choose my words. The reason why the park board disbanded is because there wasn't a level of communication happening between administration and the park board, and the administration kind of says, we don't want you to do this anymore, we don't want you to do this anymore, we don't want you to do this anymore, we don't want you to do this anymore. And it's just like, and when we give recommendations, or when we would ask questions, here's the response: we can't talk about that. 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 There's no trust. The reason is, if you really look, if you really kind of drill down, I think it really has to be a collaborative visionary where people can come to the table and they're heard. When people will help support what they help create. That's just normal business. When they're heard and supported, you know, that's a great idea, that's a great idea, I didn't think about that, that's something to consider. And you bring the sum of the parts to the thing, people go, actually listen to me. Oh my gosh, I've got some other ideas now. You know, and then it actually, it builds trust between leadership and the community to be able to go, because, you know, if you look at the community, we got a really high educated community. We got people that got their stuff together. They know stuff, they can run, they got vision, they got ideas. I think we're on a gold mine of ideas. On a gold mine of ideas, of things to move forward. And vision, and people have money. People have pockets. But they won't support, because I was having this talk with a patient yesterday about the university foundation board and going asking for millions of dollars. Okay? People will give what they can help support. If they have a vision for more parks or more like a bike path from here over to Park City, I've got $120,000 because I like to bike, and my voice is heard and I got a voice at the table. Hey, here's some resources to make it happen. You know, I really do think we have a gold mine of ideas here. I think there's just been some hitches in the past regarding communication and kind of trust building and listening and actually implementing some ideas because that's really why it disbanded, because why did we even have a meeting? Because we couldn't talk about this, we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that. And then we go, why are we even meeting?
And I'm sorry.
Well, we definitely can't change the past, as you know.
Exactly, we can learn from it though.
But we've had enough
100%.
discussions and, you know, making this a priority that we've said,
Yeah.
you know, everybody we've talked to, and that's
Yeah.
a great job of putting this together.
Right.
We want that type of arrangement.
Yeah.
That kind of input.
Yeah, I think it's time for a fresh start.
Yeah.
Well, and having been on the park board for like 11 years, because I've been on for a long, long time, and I hear everything you're saying about the same people being on different boards, I think that's very
20% of people do
valid.
80% of the work.
Very valid.
We know.
And so this idea is very interesting to me. I didn't know anything about this before I came tonight. It's a very interesting idea. I can see there's benefits to it for sure. The one thing I can see that was nice about having just the park board was that there was a single-mindedness focus about what we were doing and what we were talking about. So there wasn't a lot of double-mindedness about whether something should be priority or not priority. It was like everything we were talking about really was priority. I mean, because we just were talking about the park. So we didn't have to battle with other agendas or other areas to see what was important. We just knew this is what we're doing. And we tried to, you know, each of us had expertise in different areas. Like Jack McCormick had been on the Botanica. He knew all about trees and all that. And so he had so much experience, and then I had been a master gardener. So it was like, when you do bring those people, and what Doug's talking about, we have a gold mine within our city of people that have experiences. The buy-in part is really an interesting concept, because even with the park board, yes, we had trouble. We had 7 people, but we might have 3 show up or 4. I mean, it's a very real reality. Getting people to feel like their voice is being heard and they want to be a part of something, you know. So, but I agree with Doug, there's so many great people in our town that have so much experience.
Yeah.
So, and
I
if
think just harnessing that and having open forums and saying, you know, here's the other thing. How many city studies have we done for vision? Here's, okay, if you really want the rubber meets the road, get those out and start following those. Because if they're done, and they spend, I don't know how much money they spend on them, and they're not followed, why should people put any more input in it because it's not gonna be done anyway? That's been a very common thing that I've heard and talked with people saying, we had these surveys done and there's no progress being made or referred back to them to say, hey, we're working on this, hey, we're working on this is part of the vision thing, let's bring it back up, we're working on this, people got vision, you know, ideas for this is what kind of city you want. I think that kind of burned, I think, a lot of people when you have these surveys and then the survey, oh, we're gonna do this now, squirrel. You know, ask for my comment.
No, you're right.
yeah,
I don't think anybody is disagreeing with you. I think the trust needs to be built back again, and I
Yeah.
completely
that's
agree
the
with
one
that.
thing, Ashley, that came to me when I was sitting in the back and you're talking about buy-in or getting people to participate, and it is frustrating to have the same people on the same
Yeah.
committees,
Mhm.
You
because
see the same people, you go, I just saw you last week.
Yeah.
but I think to me, the word that kept coming to me was trust.
Completely
Trust.
agree.
To be able to get people to trust that the things that are happening on these committees are really something to be involved in. Like, it's great, it's exciting. I remember being on the park board with Jack McCormick, and I just love Jack. But the more he had expertise about trees, and the more that we had people telling us that, you know, we needed more shade, the more he was saying, let's do this, the more we got excited. And our whole family, even our son at the time,
Because we want to make the city better.
our son at the time was 6 years old, and Jack lobbied to get a bunch of trees that we were gonna plant ourselves. And our son was out there planting with us at 6 years old. And to this day, he loves this city, because he learned that he was gonna be a part of it. So I do like the idea of having a younger person
Yeah.
involved. I thought that was great, the
Somebody
high
that can
school
actually have,
student or
can actually,
something.
you know, the glory of a young man's is strength, but the glory of an old man's is gray hair.
So anyway,
You like Todd?
I appreciate your guys' input, and it does help. I think when we get to that point of figuring out what are the responsibilities of the park board, and how do we like structure like the bylaws again to make sure that we're representing what you guys can accomplish versus what the city has to pay for, and actually make it so that we trust what we're getting from our advisory
Right.
board. Not that I wouldn't trust it, but I guess what I'm saying is your input would be more so helpful if we knew what the bylaws were. I think that may have been kind of some of the disconnect up here, is we may not have understood what you guys were coming up. But I wasn't, like, I was mayor
Sure.
for like 2
Sure.
months before the park board basically disbanded, so.
yeah, I know, it happened right when you
Yeah.
got in office,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah, just look at surveys, just look at the city surveys and see what they said, and start
Understood.
bringing those up, and you
Mhm.
go, oh, they're gonna, you know, they're gonna start working on this, there's actually some progress, and it comes up at meetings, so people can hear, like, oh, they actually listen to us.
I think trust is something that, but the
I think the
idea of
timing is right.
Yeah.
because
combining
we have
this, I don't-
specifically been putting money aside the last few
Yeah.
years, because we know the park needs updated, and we're, you know, that's what everybody, it's been a pretty consistent feedback that needs to be a priority for the city, and that's what
Oh
we
my
want
gosh,
to
if
do.
you did a fundraising thing,
yeah.
I know the stuff costs $400,000 for new equipment. Honestly, you have a fundraising thing.
You'd have a lot of
People
people
lots,
wanting to
people,
be
people's name
involved.
on it, recognize them,
Mhm.
and people give, you know, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 to be able to, this is my slide.
I think it's part of our responsibility that we, you know,
You know,
we put in money for that.
Yeah.
As a city,
Right.
Yeah.
that's what we should do.
so,
Yeah,
anyway.
thank you.
Is that good?
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for your
Okay.
input.
All right,
Appreciate it.
thanks.
Alright.
Okay. Have our marching orders, so. we'll
Yeah,
put that-
great discussion.
We'll bring it back at the next meeting when,
Everybody here.
everybody should, I'm sorry, October.
Oh,
The
yeah,
first
no,
meeting in
it's the safety
October, I
Karen's
know
not here.
everybody will be here, so,
okay.
okay.
Move on to item 8, annexation ordinance 1835-24.
Just a second.
Here.
Mayor and council, the annexation ordinance you have before you is for the Kechi Township. I spoke to council a couple meetings ago about their desire to annex into the city of Kechi to allow them to build an additional building on their facility. They currently have a small piece of property that is within the city. Adjacent to that is approximately 25 acres of land that you're wishing to annex in. 30 acres they're wishing to annex in. It is a consent annexation. They came to the city and asked for that. Our zoning code will allow them to build the type of building that they want. The county's currently does not. So that is what is before you tonight, is a consent to annex into the city for that property.
Any questions?
What type of building is this that they're planning on building?
So it's a shop for equipment, for all our equipment,
For their like their road graders.
road graders, cemetery equipment. numbers.
Any concerns about annexing? I don't think
No.
so. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the annexation ordinance 1835-24 for the Kechi Township and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second?
I have a motion by Todd, second by Kendra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 3-0. Next is resolution 24-771, select an electric provider for annex property.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is part of that annexation. State law, according to Andrew, now requires us to select a electric provider for any properties that we annex. Evergy is the only electric provider out there. This resolution gives notice that we are going to select an electric service provider. We will provide notice as required, and at the next meeting, I believe, will be
I think it's October.
October. We have 30 days, yeah.
Yeah,
30
it's,
days
it's,
from
a,
now.
it's an odd process, but we have to go through it, so we'll send notice to Evergy that we've annexed that piece of property and tell them the October 24th meeting will have a public hearing and then determine who should be the electric supplier. There's no reason to change that, but we are legally obligated to go through the process, so this is the first part of that.
You mean September 26th, right? Not 24th?
No,
October 24th.
Oh, October 24th.
yes.
Okay, I thought
It has to be more than 30 days from today,
Okay,
so we
okay.
just picked the meeting that fell after that time period.
Okay. So, yeah, October 24th. Okay. Council, any questions about the fact that we have to pick every?
I don't think we have a choice.
All right, I would entertain a motion. I move that we approve resolution 24-771, providing notice of land annexed to the electricity service provider as required by KSA 66-1.176, and authorize the mayor to sign.
A second.
I have a motion by Kendra, second by Karen. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 3-0. Move on to sanitary sewer contract.
Mayor and Council, in July, a bid letting was held, and the city council accepted and approved the low bid for the planned sewer rehabilitation by mayor in the amount of approximately $800,000. Part of this will be funded through ARPA funds. The other funding source will be reserve funds that we have in utility reserves. This is the contract to get the rehabilitation started. Andrew has reviewed the contract, he has approved everything to form, and we just need the council to approve the contract so they can proceed with the work.
Council, any questions about the sanitary sewer contract? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the contract with Mayor Specialty Services LLC in the amount not to exceed $798,227.02 and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second. I have a motion by Todd, second by Kendra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 3-0. Moving on to conditional use permit CU-24-06. Now I will read this long thing. I call agenda item 8D, a consideration of case number CU-24 or 2024-06, a request to allow an oversized storage shed or structure workshop on the property in R1 single-family residential district zoning district. Before we proceed, would any member of City Council wish to abstain from voting on this agenda item due to conflict of interest, bias, or any other reason? Let the record show that there is no abstention and that a quorum of 3 council members is present. As a reminder, a valid protest accounts for petitions from the owners of 20% or more of the property being rezoned, or 20% or more of the property within the official notification area. Has the city clerk determined a valid protest for this case? No. A planning commission held the public hearing for this case on 9/13/2024. it's 8:13?
Dustin, 8:13.
Okay,
Let's go
sorry.
with 8:13.
My thing says 9, so we may want to change that. Has the council, so 8:13, has the council received a summary of the public hearing found in the unapproved meeting minutes?
Yes.
Does the council and everyone present on the case believe the public hearing was fair and impartial?
Yes.
I will now call zoning administrator Dustin Belton to present the case report, background information, and the planning commission's recommendation. Dustin?
Thank you. This guy up here. All right, CU 2024-06, Richard and Jama Harbor. Recommendation is approved with conditions. Planning Commission did vote to approve 5-0. The applicants are requesting a conditional use to construct a storage shed or structure that exceeds maximum gross floor area, 720 square feet, for properties over 10,000 square feet, but not more than 3 acres. The property is generally located east of Oliver on the north side of Kodiak, or 150 East Kodiak Street, and is zoned R1 Single Family Residential District. The property is platted as Lot 6, Block 2, Northwoods Addition, and developed with a single-family residence. The storage shed or structure is intended to be a workshop / wood shop. Storage shed or structure is defined in the Kechi zoning regulations as a permanent or temporary structure used for general storage of personal items, including vehicle storage, when required access surfacing is provided to the right-of-way. The applicants are planning on the storage shed or structure to be 26 by 32 feet, or 832 square feet, which is 112 square feet over the maximum permitted by section 1045 of the zoning regulations. Kechi zoning regulations state, except as approved by conditional use, maximum gross floor area shall be as follows: lots over 10,000 square feet in area, but not more than 3 acres, 720 square feet total between no more than 3 structures. The property currently has no other accessory structures. Approval of this request would allow the participants to construct the storage shed or structure workshop as proposed. The subject site was platted as Lot 6, Block 2 of Northwoods Addition in 2005. There have been no zoning actions on this property. Adjacent zoning and land use: to the north, south, east, and west, it is zoned as R1, single family resident, though to the north, it is undeveloped. Kodiak Street is a paved local road, and public services are available and provided to the property. The requested conditional use is in conformance with Kechi's 2040 comprehensive plan. Context-sensitive developments help preserve and enhance both the function and aesthetics of adjacent features. See recommendation number 1 below. Based upon information available prior to public hearings, planning staff recommends that the request be approved. 1, the storage shed or structure must comply with the specific use standards of section 10.45. Development and maintenance of the site shall be in conformance with the approved site plan. No hazardous waste or materials shall be stored in excess of regular household use in the storage shed or structure workshop. If the ZA finds that there is a violation of any of the conditions of the conditional use, the ZA, in addition to enforcing the other remedies set forth in the zoning regulations, may declare that the conditional use is null and void. This recommendation is based upon the following. Number 1, the properties to the east, north, west are zoned and developed as R1 single family residential district. Property to the north is zoned as R1 and undeveloped. 2, the request for a conditional use is in conformance with Kechi's 2040 comprehensive plan. 3, all utilities and public services are provided to the area. Staff do not anticipate an increase in public utilities or services due to the proposed garage workshop. The subject site is currently zoned R1 Single Family Residential District, which permits a storage shed or structure that exceeds maximum gross floor area by conditional use approval. The property is approximately 19,071 square feet and has a maximum lot coverage of 35%, or 6,674 square feet. The primary residence on the property has a lot coverage of about 7.1%. The addition of a detached, I apologize, that should say storage shed or structure, would make the total lot coverage about 11.5%. The property is not vacant. It was developed with the single-family residence in 2011. 6, staff does not see an issue with R1 single-family residential district with an oversized storage shed or structure, workshop being adjacent to other R1 single-family properties. 7, staff does not anticipate that approval of the request would have, goodness, words are hard today. Staff does not anticipate that approval of the request will have significant negative impacts on the surrounding properties. 8, approval of this application is not anticipated to have significant detrimental impacts to the public health, safety, or welfare. Denial of this application could represent a loss in the use and enjoyment of the applicant's property. Number 9, no input, positive or negative, has been received from the public at the time of staff report. Aerial map, here's the map showing the house and the property lines. It is a corner lot. Zoning map showing it is R1 surrounded by other R1 properties. Future development plan map shows the location and that it is good for housing. Site plan and basic building design. Here, north is to your left, but we see the workshop here in the backyard, and it is away from the property by 15 feet to stay away from the setback. The owner is wanting to put composite shingles, kind of an idea, a layout of what it'll look like. It will have a porch there with cedar posts. Front view, showing the pitch and ventilation. Side view. Floor plan. And site photos. Property to the north, east, south, and west of the subject property. Does council have any questions for me?
You know, it's incredible. I want one myself. Almost kind of looks like a house. I mean, I'm kind of jealous. So, say they decided they didn't want to do woodworking anymore, but they wanted to make it a mother-in-law suite. And we found out it would void a conditional use, right? It's not, like, it wouldn't count as a second dwelling, per se.
Not until they apply for a conditional
Okay.
use. If they did stick a family member in there, it would be non-conforming. It would be essentially against regulations. They would have to, I would have to go through the steps of bringing them here, going through the conditional use process again.
I'm not saying that they're gonna do it, it just.
Correct. No.
It's got a porch, it kind of looks like a house, I'm just making sure I understand what we're approving.
Yeah,
Well,
correct.
they're approving. I
Yes.
don't know.
Yep, workshop.
Okay,
Doesn't the, not, I don't know if it has any bearing here, but the Northwoods HOA approved this?
They called me probably a week before Richard called me to talk about this and asked if, they gave me an idea of what was gonna happen. I went through the regulations and everything is okay regulations wise. HOA, I asked them, they said that they don't have any reason to turn it down. So as far as I know, from what I've been told over the phone, they are good to go.
any other questions, council? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Final public input, does anyone in the audience wish, oh, I'm sorry, applicant response, does the the applicant wish to present any new information for the council's consideration? Seeing they're not here. Does the council have any questions for the applicant who's not here? I'm assuming not. Final public input. Does anyone in the audience wish to respond to the non-applicant or provide any new information that was not made available during the official public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. City council deliberation. Assuming all necessary information has been received, council has three options. Adopt the planning commission's recommendation of approval, override the planning commission's recommendation of approval with a 2/3 majority vote of the governing body membership, which is 4 votes, so we'll have to figure that out if it comes up. Return the planning commission for further consideration along with the statement reporting the basis of our failure. And does council have any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance 1836-24 with the conditions as listed.
Second?
A motion to approve the planning commission's recommendation has been made by Councilmember Hedstrom and seconded by Councilmember Baldridge. Is there, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carries 3-0. Case number CU-2024-06 is approved. The approval will become effective on the date ordinance number 1836-24 is published in the Ark Valley News. Next is council reports. Surprisingly, I have no council reports, probably because I just got back last night and didn't have time to write anything after that. Any other council reports? Seeing none, we have no staff reports today because it's next meeting. One thing, can Chief in his report maybe put some of the statistics that they're doing here in town, maybe for the last quarter or something about calls or highest complaints, just some things we can look at to see if we're addressing everything.
I will let him know.
Thank you.
And I would also just like to comment that this past month has been a very busy month for Public Works. I want to commend Thomas and his staff. I don't know
He ran away.
if Thomas is out there.
Bye, Thomas.
Bye, Thomas.
Thomas and his staff for their hard work. There was a water main break on 61st, on the south side of 61st near the little creek that goes through there. And it occurred about 4 o'clock in the morning is when they found out that it occurred. And it was a mess. Lost a lot of water. They had some issues getting the valve shut off in other parts of town to kind of shut that portion off. We appreciate everybody's patience in it. They had the equipment. It was just a matter of getting that water shut off, getting it pulled out, getting it put back in. And in the meantime, they had a gas main that was hit by a contractor at the same time. So they had to break off of that and go fix the gas main while they were trying to fix the water main. So they had a very long day. They worked very hard. They are truly professionals in what they do. So we are very fortunate to have them. Thank you for your hard work and your guys' hard work.
Well, thank you for the recognition.
And
I spent a lot of time there too, so.
he did. And it wasn't just Thomas. It was Debbie and Chris and Teresa in the front office who manned those phones, and I was sitting in my office just listening to that phone just ring and ring and ring. Normally City Hall closes at 1:30 on Fridays, and they stayed late to make sure that we took care of the citizens and answered as many calls as we could, so hats off to them too.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Alright. That's all I have. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
And a second.
Oh, before we adjourn,
Oh.
too late. Before we adjourn, just a reminder, Chairman Beatty will be here next council meeting to give a report from Sedgwick County. He'll be one of the first people up because, he works a really long day too. We'll want to respect his time and get him out of here. So we'll probably do that before public forum. so that he can go and have some dinner with his family. So, I have a motion by Todd, second by Karen. All in favor say aye. Okay, Karen said it. My bad. Karen, it's been a long night for me too. Motion by Karen, second by Todd. All in favor say aye. Aye. Carries 3-0. We are adjourned.